Okay. Hello, YouTube. Decided to go live today because sometimes when things are real and raw, it's cathartic to talk about it. And it's also useful to realize that things that I go through are also things that you go through, and we all go through as entrepreneurs who are creating our faith based businesses. And as Christians, I think we all know that there's going to be a lot of persecution of some sort in our lives. And we really do need to think about and prepare for how are we going to deal with things when they happen. So one of the things that I have been feeling um, over and over again. I mean, it's happened time and time again. So this isn't a new thing, but it comes up every now and then, which is kind of this feeling of like I'm on my own. Like I'm just out here and I really my entire support system is kind of crashing right now. And that doesn't mean that I don't have a support system. I still do have certain people that I can count on. But as we go forward, and I'm sure Jesus went through this too, right? He amassed followers, right? And followers came. And some of them got really excited and they were like, yes, I want to do this. I really do want to hear the word of the Lord. I do believe that you're God. Like, I don't think any of us are God by any means, but I'm just trying to put this analogy, right? Like Jesus had followers and they wanted to be disciples and they wanted to be around him and they wanted to hear the word and they wanted to participate in the change that he was bringing to the world. And it got hard and it didn't happen fast enough. And it wasn't looking the way that they thought it should look. And all of a sudden, they would start to meander off, right? They were go back to the Pharisees. They would go back to whatever worldly things they were going to do to distract themselves because the mission just didn't feel real enough, or the calling didn't feel strong enough, or the human need, whatever it was, right, for faster progress was really calling to them, and they couldn't sustain the weight any longer or stay with it. Do you ever feel that way? I mean, do you ever really get that feeling like all of your support system is really sort of questioning whether you're crazy or not, or whether you actually know what you're doing, or whether you're on the right track, and you start feeling that those little messages creeping in that are making you start to question whether you should go forward with your mission and the thing that's on your heart to do in the world, because maybe it's family members that are saying, why do you do this? Like, that's crazy. It's not working. I don't know how many times I have heard people I love say, well, it isn't working. It isn't sometimes, and sometimes it is, and it just doesn't notice, it's not as noticeable. One of the things that came up this morning, I was listening to a priest at church, and I guess it was a feast day of some sort of a Chinese martyr or something today. I didn't get the whole story, but what he was talking about is that, China has 1 billion people, and there are 15 million Catholics. I don't even know how many Christians, but this is just Catholics in China, and that it's suppressed. Like the government doesn't sanction this growth of this church, but this church keeps continuing to grow in spite of the fact that the government keeps it down. And that it started just by a few people who planted the seeds, right? They believed that they should spread this Christian Catholic philosophy and doctrine to people in China. And it's been 100 years and it's been growing and growing and growing. And now it's 15 million people. But we don't hear about it because they want to suppress it. But it's a movement that it doesn't stop. It can't stop. It's almost got a life of its own. So look, if you're called to do something in this world that is big for you, and it feels big, and it's not exactly rolling out the way that you want it to, you need a support system around you. And maybe the people who you count on to be your support system fall off, right? Some of them along the way. What are you going to do about that? How are you going to deal with that? Well, the way that I deal with it, obviously, is I pray and I assume that it's the way it's supposed to be and it's happening for a reason, and that the right people will come back if they're meant to come back. And, and I'm also very honest. I will tell people if I'm disappointed that, they're not supporting me, or I'll get a little feisty and say, well, I don't care, right? Like, if you could support me or not support me, if it's somebody I love and my family, but this is what I'm doing. And it's more than just a business. I'm not just building a business here, right? This is a ministry. It is a mission. It is a calling. It is a part of my legacy. And it's what I need to do in the world. And maybe I make a whole bunch of mistakes along the way. And granted, I have, right? And I could sit back and I can look at the last year and I can say, I made a lot of mistakes. And I also did a lot of things right. And a lot of people look at the mistakes and they look at the what's in it for me, and it hasn't exactly worked out for me the way I wanted it to. But what they don't look at is they don't look at the forward movement, and they don't look at what we have accomplished. And people are very sensitive. They're very sensitive. We are in cancel culture. If people around us don't agree with what we're doing, it is really easy to feel canceled and to feel like, well, because they don't believe in what I'm doing, then I don't think I should do it, right? So sometimes the people around you fall away because somebody in their life is questioning what they're doing. Sometimes it's them questioning what you're doing, right? There's all kinds of reasons for it. So I want you to keep your focus on inner, because nothing in the outside world is really matters when it comes to God, right? This is an inside job. We are working on, and that's why, in the trainings that I'm putting out about the Sermon on the Mount, it's all about how this affects you internally and what it really means for you from the perspective of your inner life, your spiritual life, your soul. And so one other thing that I was going to mention is a reading that I was doing this morning. So I've showed you this book a lot, right? That I love this book, The Sermon on the Mount, and that's what we're talking about in our trainings. But there's another book by Emmett Fox that is called Designs for Living, and it's really deep. And again, it's funny because I'm reading it now, and I actually have it printed out in like literally on paper, and I didn't even realize that I have it printed out. And I also have this book, and every one of them over the years I have read multiple times, and I have things that are underlined, for example, in this one. I don't know if you can see that, and I didn't do that today. And then in this one, I found all these places in here that are also marked off, and I don't know if you can see that. Yeah, so you can see they're marked off and bracketed. And then there's pages here that are have highlights on them. I find yellow highlights in here. So I've read these books a million times, and every time I read them, something new, right? Something new comes up. I'm at a different level spiritually. But I want to talk to you this morning about the one that I read, which was a story about Ezekiel. Now, it was titled, what was it titled? Oh, it's just called The Anatomy of Healing, which I read before I actually felt like today my world crumbled in a lot of ways. But it doesn't matter because I read that this morning. It's here for me today. But talking about this Ezekiel and the valley of bones, right? The valley of dry bones. And I mean, that is just a weird story, right? From the Old Testament. And What it is so Ezekiel was in this valley with all of these dry bones, and so it was death, right? He was in the valley of death, and he felt like he was the only living thing there. And do you ever feel that way in your work and in your business? And maybe your business is doing okay, but you're still, maybe some clients fall off, or maybe some of your team members fall off, or maybe someone in your family is just not supporting you anymore. Whatever it is, you start to feel like there's like all these dead bodies around you, right? And as the course of time, more and more people fall, and so you've got this valley of dry bones around you. And what does that mean? Well, what it means is that there's a way to breathe life back into them, and you can't do it yourself. You can only do it through God, and not all of them will come back to life. But when we turn to God, instead of focusing on the death and the destruction and the negativity and the people who are non-supportive, we go into God and we ask for guidance, and we ask for new life to be brought in. And maybe those people weren't the right people, and maybe the right people will come. But what he talks about in this is that Ezekiel had to recognize the fact that God is the only one who is going to bring life into whatever it is you're doing. So, in your business, this faith based business that you are building or growing or expanding, it's got to come from God. The solution will come in the right way. And so, when God breathes life into it, it comes from the Holy Spirit. And he was talking about there's three, I'm going to just probably end up reading a little bit of this. But he was talking about there's three steps that you have to do in order to, if you're weighed down with difficulty and you want to get out of it, and you don't know, what's the way out of this? Recognize that God can get you out of it, right? So, step one, go to God. And the Lord will prophesy upon these bones, right? And the Lord said, prophesy upon these bones, pray over these bones. And Ezekiel calls out, O ye dry bones, hear the word of the Lord. Behold, I will cause breath to enter into you, and you shall live. Okay, so now maybe this is your business that you're praying over. Maybe it's people, I don't know, whatever it is that feels like it's not alive, that problem that you're trying to solve. And then the second step is to use affirmations spoken with authority. So he says, no shilly-shallying about it, no doubt, no hoping for the best, no thinking, well, if it doesn't work out, it's not supposed to be, or no harm if I pray and it doesn't work out. You absolutely have to have belief. And that is, you have to be direct and to the point. And so you want to say, hear the word of the Lord. I will cause breath to enter into you, and you shall live. So whatever that business is, whatever that calling is, whatever that thing is that you have got to bring to life, you must pray over it, and you must believe it, and you must breathe life into it. And God says, speak the word, and these skeletons will stand up. Pray for them, and they will be covered with flesh. See my presence in them, and the breath of life will come into them, and they will be made living men and women. And so this is really a way that we are going to overcome what we feel is death and destruction all around us. And this doesn't just apply to business. This is the whole world that we're living in right now. What feels dead, the chaos of the world, the fears that we're all struggling with. So I think it's important to just remember that we are not in this by ourselves, right? We're in this with each other, and we're in this with God. And the best thing that we can possibly do is to turn it over to God, right? And to stay in that presence. So we have to make our affirmations. We have to pray over the situation. We have to see the presence of God where the difficulty seems to be. We have to overcome our doubts and our fears. And only then does the action of God begin to become visible. So if you like what we talk about here, please comment, please become a part of the discussion here. Like the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done that yet, so you'll know when I do go live. And join WIN, the Women's Impact Network. The link for that is in the description of this channel. And come over there and go live in there. Start being vibrant. Practice whatever it is that you need to talk out loud about. And if you're somebody who wants to start a YouTube channel, we're going to start talking about that also, because this is a way to be able to have a platform to share what your calling is. You know, my mission is to help as many Christian-based women create their faith-based businesses and fulfill their greater purpose in life. My mission is to share everything that I can, everything I'm learning about the Bible and the teachings of Jesus with others. And so I'm not just keeping them to myself anymore, right? I had that time when I was just internalizing all of that. And now I just want to shout it out to the rooftops. And so I have this platform, and this is where I can come. So I bless all of you. I thank you for being here. I pray for all of you. I pray for our businesses. I pray for the divine feminine to rise up. I pray for peace and joy and prosperity and freedom for every single one of you. And that is what Jesus promises us. So keep that in your mind. Peace, joy, freedom, and prosperity. I don't know what order you want them in, but it doesn't matter because we're promised all of them. All right. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll be back again at some point for another live video. Bye for now.